How do we define time? Is it simply the accumulation of the seconds that fill our lives, or is it a visceral experience that we can manage to perceive in new ways? An object to be quantified or a product of sensation? How do we value it? Can we live outside of time, independent of its influence? Time, are you really on my side?
Time is marching on, and time is still marching on.
You're older than you've ever been, and now you're even older. Any They Might Be Giants fans out there?
Me for sure.
Yeah.
I could never really get into them.
Yeah.
They were like really clean cut, but I really like that song.
Yeah, they're not for everybody. They're cool and live in concert though. But
Yeah, and they've made a ton of albums.
Yeah, it's crazy. The kid albums are really good too because you can play them for kids. They're all about sciencey stuff.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's why I like the Aquabats.
Yeah,
they're like really kid friendly and they're really good, but they don't make any sense.
Yep. Well, welcome everybody. Metalhead was the first. I saw that. Jeffrey Pearson and Jenny Lynn, Robert Paguire. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks guys for showing up.
I'm trying
our fourth episode now. We got John Ellis joining us in place of Paul Chatlin this evening. So no guy.
I don't know anything that Paul knows, but I'm gonna fake it. I looked up Nietzsche, and I've got some stuff. So there, I know about time circles and recurrence. There we go.
Hey, you watch Star Trek, so
I got a lot of it.
I was gonna ask you guys, how come no reference to Doctor Who, Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, or Star Trek?
Yeah.
Come on,
Well, Star Trek, Doctor Who, they were not my flavor. I really like Asimov. I'll probably talk about him here before too long.
Are we talking about that kind of time though, or is this like psychological time? Which is a different kind of time, huh?
I think this is a lot of like time sensation and then how we like prioritize it.
Interesting. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah. So we're gonna start out by watching a clip from. It's a discussion between. I'm gonna butcher his name. Chris, why don't you give a lead in?
Okay. Yeah.
Tell us how you found him too.
So on Facebook, there's always like, you get random clips. And this guy was talking about how being expecting other people to determine how you feel makes you a slave to them. And it turns out this dude's name is Sadhguru Yogi Vasudev. And he's talking with another guy. I'm not quite sure the other guy. He's just like a little part of it. But he's kind of a yogi, Eastern. I'm not quite sure. I think he's a Hindu. Right?
I think.
Oh my God, that's bad.
You just pulled it up, but you don't even know who these guys are. That's all right. They're talking about time, huh? A yogi and a scientist.
It's how he talks about time. That's the point.
That's the point. All right.
Yeah, is what he says about it. It's not that it's his particular disposition or his religion that makes it important.
Okay, and that's when I started reading about Nietzsche and his time. That's why you're getting this is a different. Has nothing to do with time, space, science, time, right? Not really.
Well,
sorta.
We'd butcher relativity if we tried to discuss that.
Yeah.
All right. So we should just watch this.
You experience time. I think the point is that it's relative to your situation, whereas where science tries to make time a manipulable feature in an experiment, in physics particularly, I don't think that we'll ever really experience a black hole and what happens to time there. But
no,
as far as in your brain,
you don't want to put yourself in the singularity.
No, it'd be scary.
The little tiny pieces,
right?
Forever be stuck at the event horizon.
Big question mark. There's evil orbs and shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going all freaky.
That's why we don't get sciencey. That's why. Although we're not going any place safer than that, really.
Right.
All right. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Ready.
All right. Here we go. Maybe. Let's get them off the screen. Yeah.
time seems to be a construction of the brain because we can easily manipulate it in the laboratory so that you think something lasted longer or shorter or something happened in a different order. And there are many physicists like Einstein who were very clear on this point that time doesn't actually exist, but we're trapped inside of it.
In the yogic way of seeing things, we just see life as a dance of time and energy. It's a certain amount of time and a certain amount of energy. Actually, to put this time and energy together in a proper, weave it together well. If your time gets over when your still energy is vibrant, we say this is an untimely death. If your energy gets over when your still time is on, it's a vegetative life. To the art of putting this time and energy together so that both of them play together, dance together well, is a successful life. So when we say time, there are many, many things we can do with energy, but our time is ticking off at the same pace. We may think many things, we came to this talk, we went to the cinema, we went to the university, we went here and there, but as far as physical body is concerned, it's going straight to the grave. Because it is keeping time. Your brain, but body is properly keeping time. Never you can fool this body, all the time keeping time, because time is a consequence. Time is not a factor by itself. Time is a consequence of cyclical movements in the physical reality. We know time. If the earth spins once, we say it's a day. If the moon goes around us, we say it's a month. If the earth goes around the sun, we say it's a year. Our idea of time has come essentially because of the cyclical movements of everything that's physical around us. This is the nature of physicality. Physicality is essentially cyclical, whether it's atomic or cosmic, everything is cyclical. The moment you're identified with physical nature, time is a big factor. If you dissociate yourself with your physical nature, if you sit here and if you have a little space between you and your physical body, because what you call as my body is an accumulated process. It is something that you accumulated, it's just a piece of the planet. If a little space comes between you and your body, suddenly time is not a factor. To such an extent, we have any number of people, this may be very difficult for a Western audience to digest, but I have seen yogis who have not moved from the place they were sitting for over 6 months, 7 months, just in the same place. By any normal standards, your body should not survive that. But once they sit down, they won't move, just like that, not moving at all. Because once you distance yourself from your physiological process, time is not a factor. Right now you're sitting here, it's not your watch which is keeping the time, it's your body. If I make you sit here for 3 hours, your body says it's enough. But suppose you did not have a body, we are going to sit here for 3,000 years, what's the problem? So essentially, because of your rooting in your physical platform, which you call as the body, which you built over a period of time, from the accumulations that you gathered from this planet, that is the basis of experience of time. If you distance yourself from that, there is no consequence of time on you.
Yeah, so that was a little longer than we anticipated, but basically we were talking about how we measure time and how we perceive it and how it's come to regiment our lives.
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
totally. I really liked how he focused on the body as being the center of time fixation, that when you consider time, it always comes back to a function of the body, not necessarily like a psychic or like emotional function. And that makes it something that's actually within our province. It's not like some abstract dimension out in space. It's something that we experience directly.
Yeah. I was noticing in chat here, Jeffrey Pearson says, Western time is linear, Eastern time is cyclical, or so I am told. How I've always kind of pictured it as a bubble, like if we were to be able to see outside of it because of the realm of possibility. that we could find ourselves in,
Right.
because it has to be three-dimensional, basically.
Mhm.
So, but that's
Right.
viewing time as a fourth dimension, and or fifth, or however.
Well, they try to pin it onto the fourth, but it doesn't work that way. Each, from the first to the second to the third, they all operate by the same rules, and it's like seductive to think of time as the different instantiations of that according to like a linear model. But the changes that can happen in that affect the dimensions and how they interact. And so between the first three, it works that they, you know, from a point to a line to a three-dimensional picture out to multiple images makes a really complicated case for how that would like actually work, because you'd have to have basically an infinite number of them to like effectively like describe that image.
So did you just go into physics here, because you're going into my little
I
bit of
know,
my
sorry.
hobby, and I'm just going to say that actually the whole linear concept of time is really being challenged and changed right now. That there's with the expansion of M30 and M theory, and it's gone beyond that. That they're actually seeing time not as linear, and space time is a very different function, and we're doing some things. The holographic universe. Ooh, yeah. I mean, we've there was just a recent experiment where they've put atoms in two different places at the same time. We're doing teleportation at the atom, you know, at the not like complex organism, but definitely at a small level, right? So
yeah, anything having to do with the quantum level falls apart according to like our understanding of like cause and effect and locality. And so time, I feel like, is a really useful rubric for us, but I mean, there's other species that use it. I mean, you could talk about like migration and like, you know, seasonal patterns, like elk going back up in the mountains or whatever, like, but not like to the extent of like planting crops, like with time, or like, you know,
really?
Nuclear clocks, you know, like, well, I'm just talking about the amount of like yearly precision that's like, you have to like, you know, sow the seeds here, and if the rain doesn't come, then, you know, whatever. Like, I guess that's not very fair.
Well, no, yes, we took it to the most advanced stage because we're the most advanced animal as far as we know. But I mean, all animals deal with time in this Earth clock. Yeah. But anyway, that's not even the point. I just thought that was really cool. That was an interesting discussion. I like that. Because I don't know if this has anything to go with where you wanted to go. I just want to say this. When he started talking about that space, a little space between your mind and your body, we all have experienced time dilation, right? Where we were so involved with reading something or doing something, or in my case, I'm really stoned and I'm focused on something, and then I'm like, holy shit, it's been an hour and a half, and I've digested an hour and a half's worth of content, and it's been 5 minutes, right?
Right, exactly,
we know that.
Yeah, that like flow of like losing contact with like external stimuli and shit. And just look at like sleep. Everybody experiences that every day. It is time dilation. You do not experience the intervening time the way that you do consciously.
Right.
And so for me, that indicates that it's a conscious process more than it's a like an absolute ruler out there that we can like, oh, well, let's jet back to, you know, Back to the Future 3 and we'll go, you know, see Doc Brown do this or whatever. Like, I don't think that it's like set like that. I think it's way more flexible. I think that this world could create a brand new past in its current form easier than you could actually go back to that time and change it.
And speaking of the time dilation, going back to that, I'm noticing that what Poodle Susan said, something that you brought up earlier, Chris, when we were talking about it, but I watched referring to time, about how it, you know, time flies when you're having fun. Things that acknowledge our perception that time is more tenable than we are led to believe by our adherence to a structured time frame.
Right. I don't remember who said it. Somebody said it way on back that time is something we use as a coping mechanism for not being able to deal with everything all at once. And that's really kind of
right. No, exactly. I think it's a lot like a transistor or whatever.
I think it was Keith.
Keith?
I think it was Keith.
In that by binding our memory to a cycle in our brains, to the hippocampus and all those other structures or whatever, that the way that memory works, you refer always consciously to memory, and that establishes a difference between the past and now, and then that creates the illusion of the future, so that you are bound to time just by the way that you have a memory. And that if you didn't, that your experience would be drastically different. If you had no like memory, it would be unthinkable the same way as like a rose would be without, eyes and a nose. It's like it doesn't have the same like delicacy to it, or sophistication, I guess is a better word.
You're forgettable in every way.
What's that movie like that? Memento? That David Lynch film, right?
Yeah, totally.
How frightening
Where
that
he
would be.
tattoos on his body and stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like to experience a lack of time reference.
That happens after an epileptic seizure for me. You have to rebuild it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So scary. Yeah, but it's weird. But yeah, time. So
anyway, move on. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think that time is actually like a function of your brain, and then we use that to order our world the same way that we would use like hierarchical systems just automatically imposed on the environment in spite of them not being like 100% accurate. I think time works the same way. That if we didn't have our own eyes to look through, we wouldn't see it the way that we do.
Right. Sure. Perspective. I see you talking about meditation, Laura, live and good.
And Stock was saying how you're saying it's perceptional, basically.
Yeah, that's sensational.
And, Stock was saying that it never has been dimensional, because Metal was saying he viewed it as fourth dimensional. Yeah. And I think that kind of makes sense. That fits in there. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a dimension. Just again, the way we've kind of collapsed the waveform onto this moment that is our lives. If you look at everything in that particle wave duality,
right?
Once it's observed, that waveform collapses. You have a particle, and that's our moment in time. And really. You're part of a wave. You can feel it. You know you have a future, and you have a past. But what you don't realize is how many different, to continue the metaphor, how many different electron levels you're able to jump.
Right?
Like how many different probabilities you have to be anywhere. So
totally.
I find it kind of fascinating. Our kind of sphere of possibility that we have available to us, assuming there's no determinism, that fate isn't, and we could, that's a whole other show about fate and free will, maybe determinism. So.
Right. Exactly. So do you think that we could, time travel?
Mentally,
yeah,
maybe. I don't think we could take our bodies with us.
Right.
I don't think that doesn't sound feasible to me. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Like, as far as time travel, I'm looking at the chat, looking around. Anybody?
The laws of physics say that we could travel forward in time faster than other people by doing certain things, like bringing ourselves closer to the sun or black hole, and changing our time very much changing our time relative to other people. So, that's...
Do you think that we'll have a holodeck before we achieve time travel?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're almost
there.
Like
the next frontier?
We're almost to holodeck. We're almost there. No joke.
I hope so.
That
would be sweet.
Yeah. Yes. We're with where they're going with material science and the advancement of what they're doing with in the quantum world. Absolutely.
That's sweet.
And
I was just going to say we have the same odds of getting blown up by 45, so don't get your hopes up.
Right? There are imminent possibilities, that's for sure.
Who was it telling me the other day? There there was some theory that CERN had already blown us up, but we don't know about it because we're
Dude, yeah, time shift, Mandela effect.
yeah.
Dude, seriously, the Mandela effect stuff is weird because there's like definitely like things you're like, I thought it was that, and then no. But if we shifted time, if we jumped into a new timeline, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to jump to a timeline where Bernie won the presidency.
Right? like Sliders-esque, where you just like zip over and you're like, oh,
and
there's a weird rock.
Yeah, you think about that. Okay, if quantum events can happen that kind of spontaneously and erratically, like how many quantum events would it take for Bernie to be president?
Probably pretty narrow. I think there are certain things, just like who was Roosevelt's vice president, who like should have had like an identical situation if Roosevelt had shown up with the DNC. I feel like an astronaut. Remember his name? Anyway, yeah, same hijinks, same Democratic Party nonsense, and he was like pro-union, pro like farm bill type stuff. So we could have like very easily had a couple of different times, and due to hijinks, we just got screwed over.
You guys are talking funny. So this is a talk about time travel, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, really,
Right?
Yeah,
Totally.
Unfortunately, we don't have a TARDIS to get us.
That would be sweet.
That would be nice, though.
So I'm not a Doctor Who guy. Does that travel through time, or is it like a?
It in fact stands for time and relative dimension in space. Oh, that's the TARDIS. So that's the thing that iconic police box.
Right.
In Doctor Who. Yeah, that takes.
Is it related at all to Bill and Ted?
Bill and Ted was born of Doctor Who.
It was like an Americanization of it.
Oh yeah, well it was just they just copycatted the idea. Doctor Who's been around since the '60s.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Wow.
It started in black and white, my friend. British TV.
Oh really?
In black.
Holy shit! That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and we were talking about other. What are these guys talking about in chat here? Anything good?
Well, they're
2020.
Is it dreaming?
they're agreeing with us about some of them are about holodecks and where we're at with that.
And by the way, I have been told before that I look like David Tennant from Doctor Who.
Yeah, you do kind of. You do. You have that snooty British look to you. I don't know.
Fuck off!
See, exactly. Harry Potter on the dark side. That's basically.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I love it when he affects the Scottish accent, like full-on Scottish accent.
The first Doctor is old. He is.
Yeah.
I don't even remember his name, but yeah, he's old. I started.
And do they come back like between episodes? Like the
Sometimes.
old Doctor Who comes back, or does he have to die?
That pretty much has to die off. It's
But the genius of it is that they go back and forth through each other's time, so they can bring a guy back on for like a cameo later on, right? You can have a doctor convention where they all meet somewhere, like Switzerland in time. They've had all sorts of fun shit.
That was taboo for a while because of the whole paradox thing.
Right.
What is that called when you go back in time and kill your grandfather?
The butterfly effect?
No, there's something specific to that exact instance. Like as if every scientist ever or philosopher ever wanted to go back and kill their own grandfather for some reason.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, it's a time paradox. Would you? Yeah, but the whole thing there is that now we believe in multiverse, or many more believe in multiverse. It'd be like, oh, well, that timeline is there,
Right. Yeah. It was created by possibility.
And since it happened in Star Trek, it's true. So.
Yeah, and now look at the Marvel universe.
Right.
Yeah,
It's all coming together.
Yeah. If they do it in Hollywood,
Right.
we're going with this. What's his name? The new EPA guy, science, or the new science guy, science. Scott Pruitt, whatever his name is.
Oh yeah.
Good guy.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Bill Nye.
No, he's a real scientist. And don't tell me he's not. He's a fucking engineer at counts. Shut up, everybody. Everybody that gives Bill Nye shit for not being a scientist. This is not a philosophy discussion at all. I'm supposed to be Paul. I'm ruining it.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back around, we're going to discuss Nietzsche's Eternal Return of the Same.
Yes.
Right.
Following on the coattails of last week. Now that we've gotten you familiar with Nietzsche, and I had mentioned the gay science. There's this thought experiment that I'd like to read that I've always found very fascinating. it's kind of uplifting, positive. Do you have that video to roll there?
Don't hug me, I'm
John?
scared too.
No, this is
Yeah.
this is the one, the eternal return of the same. There, I was just going to read that off.
I don't have that video. I'll
Oh.
look for it.
Oh, it's a slide.
Oh, it's a slide.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a slide.
it was.
Oh, is it not?
It's a link for a video, but
Oh.
if you just click on the link for the video, and
Okay.
anyway, I can keep setting it up. But basically, Nietzsche has this thought experiment where he's asking you to consider, and I can just paraphrase if it's harder to.
I got it.
You got it. All right. Wait. Got it.
Next time we'll have much better. Never mind. Here we
Oh
go.
my goodness.
Here's
Jenny Lynn says she'll nigh. Sounds like she's got a.
She'll nigh.
She's
That's
got
awesome.
an issue with him.
Was he? Yeah, he was.
That's freaking awesome.
I don't know how he could be for Hillary, knowing she would continue to frack the globe. But hey,
Yeah.
all right. Here's Nietzsche.
Okay. So yeah,
Maybe,
what if someone day or night a demon? Excuse me. What if some day or night a demon went to steal after you in your loneliest loneliness to say to you, "This life as you lived it now, and as you have lived it, you'll have to live once more and countless times more." Would you not throw yourself down, gnash your teeth, and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are God, and I've never heard anything more godlike"? So to paraphrase that, it's like saying, is what you're doing now good enough so that if you had to live every day of your life over again, you could say, yes, you could justify that and say, yes, this is exactly what I need to be doing with my life, basically, or at least have those moments where those peak moments that I've heard some time philosophers say, especially like clairvoyants or psychics say, what stands out is these peak events in time, right?
Yep.
That are immutable. And to have those in your own personal life, enough of those to be able to say, yeah, I'd like to live that life over again. That sounds like a heaven to me. I think that's a.
And he's
nice.
saying that the demon would force him to live that over again, and that would be a blessing. Is that right?
That's the thing. Is it a demon or is it an angel? Basically, is this a punishment or is this a reward for how you've lived your life?
Right. Totally. And so he would, and that's where the choice is deciding whether or not it's a demon or an angel. That you're bound to.
It's that by the time he comes to you, if you are to be judged in that way, that you'll either at that point you'll think back on your life and say, "Oh, it was good. I had more of these moments that were triumphant, that were joyful, that were just heart-filled warmth."
Right.
Or, "Oh shit, I don't want to do that again."
Right. Exactly.
So that's it's not a choice at that point. It's more of it's a reflection for the future and for the past. So be wary. Yeah, your outlook.
Right.
Be wary of how you perceive things and how you view things, and make sure that those moments that you have are that you make those joyous moments count. And
right. Exactly. That qualifies the life.
Yeah, kind of that's my metric of success is not just joy, but how much joy I can bring to others while bringing it to myself. I feel like
right. Whether you would go through and do it all over again if it was worth it.
Yes.
Totally.
And John, you had something as well, weren't you, that you were going to speak to about the eternal return, or?
Oh, I don't know. It's just basically, first of all, what Poodle Susan was saying, time is like fire. There are different grades, and fire is consciousness. Time is like fire, which is consciousness. There are different grades. Being awoke, feeling the burn. Is that
Okay.
is that what-
Okay. Like yeah, like blue flame versus versus red.
The
That sort of thing.
Sure.
Intensities and
Oh, right.
intensity of
Okay.
life.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. I'm well. So what I was supposed to be Paul, guys, and I didn't quite get it
Why,
done with the hair.
I lobbed you the Nietzsche.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't read as much as I was supposed to. Honestly, I didn't at all. I got like one thing here. What I got out of it was that they're saying things just repeat, whether we come back as the same person or a different thing or whatever. A lot of the cyclical belief in time is just we keep coming back until we get it right or better, and that the whole idea is that we improve and be better. And to me, I just want to say it all sounds like an excuse to get over mortality.
Right.
I can't cope with
I would
the fact
agree.
that I have a limited lifespan and that lifespan appears to be linear and that I'm stuck with it and I got to make the best of it. So I'm going to pretend that I get to do it again.
Yeah.
Right,
If we didn't have a lifespan, this wouldn't be a discussion, right?
Right.
You know.
Well, I would still be talking about whether I find my life enjoyable or not boring. And what
Right.
I'm going to do, you know, that's where I got at that. Like, is your life full of enough peak moments? In other words, are you bored? Are you
Right.
Right.
But would it matter if you were immortal? If you were bored, wouldn't you just expect
I mean, permanent
most of the
boredom.
time?
That's
Yeah,
a great question.
like-
I think the immortality would drive the lack of boredom. I think you would. You know, I don't know. Maybe not.
'Cause,
Maybe
I mean, one day I'd probably just lay in bed. Maybe the next day I'd go on a killing spree. Just maybe after a few thousand years, just like I wonder what it's like to just kill a bunch of people. You know,
you would. That's the first
Well,
thing
yeah,
you can think
eventually.
of. Like,
No, I'm just saying. Eventually, you'd get there. It'd be like Groundhog's Day, right?
think?
Oh, right.
You'd be
Right.
like, all right, I've killed myself or tried to kill myself a million different ways. Let me kill other people.
Right.
You know, let's
Right.
let's
Just as like
do-
trying to
do
deal with it.
whatever.
Like,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just figure.
You're assuming that it's boring.
No. Well,
That you have
I know.
to resort to killing people to make it interesting. Like your
No.
brain's gotten so.
I'm just saying that in order to not be bored, you're gonna have to
right.
do. You're gonna have to test a lot of different materials.
I would think if you're immortal, I think if we were actually immortal, that we would have a completely different outlook because we'd be immortal, and that to discuss it is like you and I talking about being pregnant, because until we are, we have no fucking idea what we're saying.
But we
Right.
still have the rights over women's reproductive rights.
As long as our government sits the way it is, yes. we do. Yay! Isn't that great?
We-
Yes. Now,
Well,
so you just took us from Time Lords down to hairless apes. Come on, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right.
Speaking of hairless apes, the other time distortion that I've ever experienced on a kind of semi-regular scale was when I was doing a bunch of meth, and that was back in college,
Right.
and it gets you in such a way that like I think a lot of people that get addicted to it for the high and the adrenaline rush. But for me, it was like I have so many more hours in the day.
Right.
Like I can do what I want for as long as I want now.
Right.
Is what it felt like. It
Yeah,
distorted
exactly.
time that much.
Mhm.
And then it, and I don't want to glorify it because crank's a terrible drug, obviously. But it's just interesting when you have your perception of it changed that much.
Right. Totally. Yeah, exactly. And Missoula was like a college town, and there was like so much Adderall. That was what surprised me. It was like how necessary Adderall was for a lot of people to get through like classes and to like get work and stuff done. And it was like, okay, cool, done with finals, and now I'm not gonna do Adderall for a while. And you're like, it's a messed up system where like you got to do that. It doesn't seem like very normal. And I think that time like concentration where you have to get like a lot done in like a short amount of time is a really successful strategy for keeping people like confused and like just trying to keep up so they don't really like rebel And I think that's part of our cultural fixation on time.
Yeah, and we hadn't even touched on that because but earlier today you were really kind of changing my thought process on how we value time, because I wanted to get into that as because we've all used the expressions before of I'm running out of time on this, or I wish I had more time in the day, or yada yada. We value time as one of the utmost
right. Yeah.
Of the utmost,
everything runs on time. Subways, pay clocks, parking meters, like
time is money.
Exactly. Cell phones.
Right.
You have something in your pocket that will tell you the time.
And so to say that it's not important,
right.
or that we shouldn't value it in and of itself, is really questioning society's, how society views it,
whether
and how we
do
do
or
it,
not.
and how we. No, just time, how we value it.
Well, sure,
but fetishizing.
Well, sure, I understand, but I mean, who was it? Somebody said that knowing that we have a limit makes time precious. So there's our mortality gives it more value, but you're saying that it shouldn't. That time should be valued regardless. Could we?
I don't know if time should be valued to begin with. I think that it's a experience that. To say that you value time is to kind of dislocate the thing you enjoy from its description. So like when you're at work, a smoke break, if you're a smoker or whatever, is 15 minutes of escape, right? It's that time it has meaning.
It belongs to you
because it's yours, but it's contrasted to being at work, right? So, I love this 15-minute break I get, means I like getting away from this unpleasant work, enjoying my cigarette or my cup of coffee or whatever, and then going back to it. Well, if all you had was free time, you'd be miserable. And if all you had was work, you'd be miserable. Well, so I think that,
okay.
What's that?
Well, the assumption that the work is terrible, so you're enjoying your free time. And but I mean, you could just say that time it doesn't belong to me. That's work time. This time belongs to me.
Exactly.
It's worth more because it's mine.
Right, but that's a system that's imposed on you. It's not like here's a list of things that you have to do, get them done in the next 3 days.
Wait, I got to make the shot right before I say this. I just want to say it's not a system that's imposed on us. We're animals. That system is imposed on us by the sun. We have to sleep. It's not our time. We can choose. We can choose not to sleep, and we face the consequences of that. But our sleeping, not our time. We're out of control during that time, right? We're dreaming, but we're born as an animal of something that requires time to function. I don't think you could take time away and have us function. I don't think our brain would function. We need that time to repair the chemical, the chemical brain.
What Chris is arguing, though, is that the value that we place on it is a construct, is a social construct, like money. Basically the way that we value it, because we work for time, we trade our time for money, for work, and to say that we. Because again, to say that we value time is to say, like Chris said, that we value either our free time or our family time or our work time. You have to specify the thing that you are using that time for, right?
But then you can remove the word time altogether.
Yeah, you can, because you're substituting A equals B equals C. B is time.
Right. And nobody's disregarding being subject to time, circadian rhythms in your brain. There is a normal acclimation to time. I think what I'm talking about is Henry Ford's contribution to our society.
Sure.
Is a way of compartmentalizing time.
Time is
and
money.
making a lot of money. He made money, but he made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's a result of that focus. And I think that focus has become a model that we all have adjusted to, but is not the norm. I think that as the sedentary farmer life had a different time scale to it than a modern metropolitan. I mean, even just like rural America to inner city America, time is different. Between cultures, time is different.
Sure, I agree. That change in time value, though, you're right. You just nailed it, though. It comes in. We had community-oriented time, and now we have profit-oriented time. Corporate-oriented time, right?
Yeah. And I'm just saying that that's unique. I'm saying that that's like a unique situation to be in, and to understand the effects it's going to have on you. You really have to locate where time like originates from, and then how we use that afterwards. And so I think that it's a function of your brain, and that by trying to standardize everybody's experience of time, you standardize how everybody thinks. Yeah. Well, if you your own time, then you're not a dependable cog in the machine. You're not gonna show up for your shift or a picnic or freaking whatever. And I think that that's just an effort to consolidate power over labor. Pure and simple, straight Marxism.
Yeah, I agree with that. So really, what is in order to change how we value time, we have to get away from the profit-centered civilization?
I think it'd be easier to just challenge your conceptions of time. And I think that meditation is like a humongous challenge to the experience of like the ego self and spending time not like behaving, with trying to remove reference to time, that you can diminish the influence that has over your life. I'm not saying meditation is the solution. I'm saying that challenging those limits is the only thing that really illustrates that they're there. And then once you're aware that they're there, you can operate around them.
Interesting.
And you could say, you can dock me for not being PC about this, but I've heard plenty of people in the Indian communities refer to Indian time, and that's both. And this is even less PC: dot feather and or dot Indian and feather Indian, but either one will say Indian time, as referring to basically when people show up at an event.
A culturally relevant estimate.
Yeah, and so it is a cultural thing for them to be. I know that if I'm doing an Indian wedding, that or a reception in particular, show up at 2. I'm like, the first guest will show up at 4, or so, it considerably well after, because they don't value it the same way, and it's so they're not as neurotic about it, and maybe for some purposes there's you do really need to be neurotic about it, but exactly like you said, to impose it upon everybody else. John, for example, isn't that neurotic. We started the show at 7:02 or so. We'll probably go out about 8.
It's all good.
Yeah,
John made choices.
Yeah, there you go.
For sanity. I just want to point out that Danny says Native Americans faced with early colonists had trouble grasping the Western concept of time, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Fair enough.
Right? I mean, and I get your point. It's just, right, it's the way they looked at it. This is when we're going to get together. That means when we get together. And
right.
There wasn't well, I have to get back to my job because Mr. Man is going to need me to punch out those things and do that whatnot, right? It was a very different way of living, which we eradicated mostly.
I find myself struggling with that day to day as well, because I have certain things that I live. Well, we have a garden like you, John, and that is all about the timing. I can't water during the heat of the day, certainly not the squash plants, because you don't get the leaves wet. There are all these rules to it. And
goddamn plants binding us to their fucking time and care.
Yeah, time binding.
Earth, again, with the earth and the time, and but that's more of what you're talking about. That's nature's time. If I'm going to give it some fucking name, nature's time, Mother Earth's time, and that's what. When you say Native American time, that's. What we're talking about there. To me,
anyway. Like I couldn't get there today because it rained a lot last night, and I had to do something else. I don't know. It's
right.
And people in my circles kind of are understand that. They're very forgiving of me for my tardiness, a lot of times, and I'm not saying it's a good. I don't like being the person that's always late, believe it or not. Like even if I am, it's because but again, it's because of society. It tells me it's wrong, and it also tells me I'm selfish because I'm valuing my own time over others, and that also to a certain extent is true. To be late is you know it's about what you convey. So it's a real dance to not get neurotic about it, but still not have it dictate your life.
To be in control of it, or do what I do, Ash, and instead of not feeling like a dick because you're late, just don't go. That's, you know, just don't go anywhere. It's like, can't we just do a hangout and talk about it? You know, you guys are talking about the Count of Monte Cristo, Robert. Said to honor appointments was gentleman thing to do, but he had hard. What? He had hard communication. I'm not sure I understand what that's talking about.
Well, I imagine it would be hard to keep. Like by the time you get a letter in the mail in those days, the duel was shit. The duel was when? Damn it! I'm late for the duel.
Plan things in advance. Is nature's time the same thing as our time? I don't think so. No, what we're bound by. I think what Ashley and I were talking about was being bound by. I mean, like if we want to have squash, we're going to incorporate watering the squash into our time.
You have to do the dance.
Thank you.
It's not something that's like meaningful in and of itself. It's that you take the time and care to do the dance that creates the possibility of that plant becoming what it is.
What blew me away about the yogi was that he interspersed like allegory really with what he was talking about, the time and energy. Not really, time and energy. Your time and your energy, right? But he did it also interweaving space-time and some basic physics concepts, whether he meant to or not. They were embedded in there, and I found that very fascinating that they covered the same things, but in two different
they were overlapping
aspects, and the where it comes to where it breaks down, and where it's supposed to break down, from what I could see, is where if you're a yogi, you stop being concerned about. You're not going into the quantum world because you're living your life. If you're you're focused on what's going on, that space between your mind or whatever, you're there. If you're a scientist, you want to analyze the shit out of that fucker, and so you're trying to dig down and look at what the hell's going on, right?
It's like seeing one of those magic eye pictures. If you are trying to figure out how your brain is working while you're perceiving it, say that the schooner right in front of me, I'm like, oh, I see it. Now, how's my brain working? Oh, I lost it again, you know, and trying to put whereas you could just stare at it and enjoy the picture maybe. And I feel like sometimes we have these conversations and we get kind of down on science for being dogmatic. It's a very useful tool, but it has its limitations as well. And so I want to point that out, that if the discussion ever sounds anti-science, it's only because we're Christians.
I don't like science,
like everything else.
Well, I'll agree with you right there. As somebody who's very fond of science and wanted to be a physicist until he found out he was too dumb. But the problem is that our Western version doesn't include any of the Eastern metaphysics and their version of the balance. It needs to be in there. It doesn't need to be in there and called woo woo or marginalized, But and yes, there is woo woo out there. There is pure bullshit too. But there is there is a connection between quantum physics, the physics world, large and small, and metaphysics in terms of us trying to understand time and ourselves. We don't focus on that. We haven't bridged those worlds, I don't think.
Exactly. And we have to harmonize them. I think that's where Einstein really had it, was when he said that science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind. Or no.
And this is why I'm going to fuck up my own equation to make it look like God had a part in it. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Well, no. What I'm saying is that you can always find a further decimal, but it doesn't necessarily illustrate the point that you're trying to make, and that it's a harmonizing. We need these complementary dimensions, and that science is going to suffer from quantum physics unless it can let go of its rigidity. It will do the same thing that happened to the Catholic Church is going to happen to science. Its foundation is going to crumble because it won't grow. And I think quantum physics is really super exciting. And it's going to, if we let it, reconcile our spiritual side with our rational side, which I think is the Aquarian goal.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes.
John Warren was saying perception is not the same as objective reality, and that it's really easy to confuse the two. And I think that's true. That is what we get hung up on. If I don't see it, if I don't agree, but quantum physics, like you pointed out, Chris, is that bridge. And when we know from quantum physics, when we observe something, we've changed it fundamentally. And so
you guys,
when you put that on a macro level, then to say that, these studies can't be quantified or can't be duplicated the same way, or that there weren't the right amount of variables in it, or whatever, is to think that you have more control than you really do.
Right. Exactly.
And so,
can I challenge that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just say that this year they actually broke through the most famous experiment in physics. Physics is discovering new ways to look at physics. They found an entirely new level of physics, not just material science, but just way to look at the universe. We have now been able to see the famous light experiment. We can see an electron as both a wave and a particle at the same time. We can view what it looks like. We can analyze it. We've done it. We've taken pictures of it. It's pretty cool fucking looking. So the old walls that we were up against before are being blown the fuck away. And I can't even keep up to date with where we're at, but they are discovering how they can manipulate things within time, material. They are I can't even explain we talked about on my show, one of the ways they're manipulating individual atoms. It's beyond it's beyond the shit we hear in Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Totally.
They're developing the basis for what the Star Trek stuff's going to be, right?
Oh, totally.
And that's it's amazing. So I am hopeful that if we survive this last ape period of humanity, that we move into a very new realm of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Are you sure that's something big science isn't just telling you so they can get more of your taxpayer money?
Yeah, I know.
You ever seen light be a wave and a particle at the same time?
Saw a picture of it on Mashable. That makes it true.
Well, I think it's sweet, and I think that's more of a dimension of imagination to be able to instantiate in an image a particle wave superposition. Because I think that at bottom, quantum physics is a rebuttal to objectivism. Or materialism, but then I think it will always seek to reconcile itself. I think it will always try to fit back in with the greater science. But I think it's the Mordred, the thing that has come along to kill the king. I think that once it can explain non-locality and explain how that is not how that fits the traditional material model of the universe, then yeah, sure. I don't know, but when two things can be in the same position or in two different positions at the same time, and you talk about like stored potential in a ball on an incline versus I think that it's going to be a very complicated reconcile to fit the two back together. But I think that you can do it through consciousness. And when we get to Ahmed Goswami, that's what's going to be really exciting, is that he fixes the dualism problem with consciousness being primary. But that's probably a little bit further than we are for right now.
Is that in the show?
It's on the horizon.
Is that in the show? Or is that like many episodes down the road?
A couple shows down.
Yeah. Our next show,
right.
which will happen in 2 weeks, another 2 weeks, look forward to that, is what is democracy and do we need it? Something like that. So.
Yep.
We need it until we can do self-governance, which is going to take several thousand years of education.
Exactly.
Or one 20 terabyte chip in the back of the head right there. Right?
It was
I
a show we
wish.
were going to do
Mortis.
before we found out that Paul wasn't going to be here. So,
Right. Did this one. By the way, I just want to
So-
point out that we can't be talking about this. Where is it? John Warren says quantum physics isn't in the Bible, so it must be a lie.
Damn it.
Just forget all that.
No.
Oh, give up on that then.
And Kentucky is now teaching Bible science or Bible history or Bible something. That ought to go real well right next to quantum
Right.
physics.
Hey, yeah, they'll fit it in here soon.
Who said, could it be Satan? I saw you there.
Could it be? I don't know.
Satan?
Oh, no, Stockpost just said it's Satan. So did you catch that? Do you get the SNL reference, Stock? I don't know if you remember those. Good one. That was a good one, Ash.
That was about as good as that's as good as it comes.
All right, so where are we at, guys?
All right. So,
Tell us about what our song. Yeah, that we're going out with. There.
Are we done?
Yeah.
I looked at the
We're
clock.
done, we're done.
It's like there's 2 minutes left. I'm like, what's next? What's the next part?
Right.
There's other stuff. We didn't do the hug me thing.
I know, I'm afraid that would just confuse people. So, that confused me.
You can put the link in there, and then please feel free to send us your responses on that.
Right? It is
With no
confusing.
lead up. We're
I'm
not going to
put
give
the
you
link in.
lead up to it.
When we go talk about this again, we'll make sure to get those links in the description of the YouTube. Event.
Right, yeah, that's
So
our next
click on
step.
those.
That's
I will do better about that.
The church lady, John Warren got it. The church lady. There you go.
Yep.
You win our Pseudo-Intellectuals giveaway.
Raffle?
you win my voice
back.
on your answering machine.
Why not? That's a great
That
idea.
wouldn't be bad. Nice. Yeah, so I'm a huge David Bowie fan. I don't think that this serves to really like elucidate what we were talking about, but it's an awesome David Bowie song off of the album Aladdin Sane. It's called Time. We'd like to thank our producer, John. We'd like to thank Uphill Media, our mods, everybody that comes around, talks, helps out on the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget to like, share, reflect on what we've talked about. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment on the YouTube page, or even better, come to the next show and just ask them on the air. We'll answer whatever you guys got to talk about, especially at the beginning. Would be awesome. So I think we're going to do David Bowie's Time.
You are, but I just got to say they want this. They want more. They want more discussion of time. We should do a time 2 after democracy. We should really.
All right.
say
Yeah,
that.
that sounds great.
Or we could call it time 1. They just don't
Right.
realize it yet.
If we do another time when I will be bringing up Kurt Vonnegut.
All right.
I'll tell you that right now.
I think that's a good idea. It was a great. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for all being here. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah,
You guys did a great
yeah,
job.
thanks.
Metalhead, I don't know who Jeff is.
Jeff.
Don't worry about it, guys.
Jeffrey Pearson?
Yeah, maybe
No.
Jeff Pearson.
No.
Next week you'll have Paul back, the guy who can
Yeah.
say a lot more than I can about any of this shit.
That's right.
Thank
It'll
you.
be more concrete and deeper concrete to plow through. So
Ooh.
get your hard hats on.
Right? It's going to be an effort.
Bowie.
All right. Thanks,
Bowie.
everyone.
Bye.
Time, he's waiting in the wings. He speaks of senseless things. His script is you and me. Boy, time, he flexes like a whore, falls wanking to the floor. His trick is you and me. Boy, time, in quaaludes and red wine, demanding Billy dolls and other friends of mine. Take your time. The sniper in the brain, regurgitating drain, incestuous and vain. And many other last names. victim. You just scream with boredom. You are not evicting time.